Iowa with the 93-62 win over Southeastern Louisiana, and a solid performance for the Hawkeyes. And one of those games where you just want to get out of there, right? And just want to get out of there with a win. And they were able to do that. Give us a call if you want to give us a call and discuss the Hawkeyes. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. We anticipate being joined by Coach Gary Close momentarily. He was actually at the game tonight, and so he's expected to jump on with us, so we'll try to make that happen. But in the meantime, we're here to talk Hawkeyes, everything Hawkeyes. And I'm just responding to a message. Apologize for this. All right, so Keegan Murray with his second career double-double tonight. 90 points. That'd be nice. 20 points, 10 boards for Keegan, and just efficiency all around, as always. He does it every night. Got in some foul trouble early, but was able to get out of foul trouble and, stay out of foul trouble, I should say, in that second half. And again, you don't need to play a kid like this a ton of minutes in a game like this. So you just got to keep these kids healthy. I think everybody's a bit worn out with games like this against the likes of Southeastern Louisiana and Tennessee Tech, Martin, that kind of game. But you got to do what you got to do. These are the games that were on the schedule, and for these players, you just got to, put your head down and keep going. Now, we'll talk about this, but this next game against Western Illinois is a dangerous game. That's a good team. That is a good team over at Western Illinois. They've already beaten Nebraska, nearly beat DePaul. So Iowa needed to get out of here with a win tonight. The real Hayden, good to see you here tonight. Glad to have you on here and as always, supporting the show. Weston would like to see Mulvey play more. Well, if Josh Agundale's injury is serious at all, which we don't know, I don't believe at this point, if that's the case, then I would think there are going to be games where you have to play Riley. Now, the good news for Iowa is maybe the two teams with the best big men, and that would be Purdue and Illinois. They've already played those teams once. Now they play both of those teams a second time, so I would presume that you're going to need a big body. I know they played a lot of zone against Purdue and Illinois, but there were times when Josh Agundale, especially against Purdue, and I thought against Illinois they could have used Josh more. They're going to need those big bodies because, again, when you struggle to rebound the basketball and you struggle to be able to match up physically with guys like Kofi Coburn, Trevion Williams, Zach Edey, it's going to be a problem. And we saw that for moments, especially against Illinois in the second half. So Riley comes in late, but I really don't think this coaching staff feels like he's ready. So, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see. You hope he can progress. But again, there's always that opportunity to be able to find minutes in this conference, especially if you're a big man, because Iowa's not real big inside. They're rebounding the ball better now, but I'll just say this right now. Look, they won the rebounding battle tonight. What was it, like 50-32? Okay, that's good. Nobody should be drawing any conclusions based off a 50-32 effort against CELA. Okay, that's not how that works. So let's hold our horses on that. It was encouraging to see Iowa rebound the ball well against Utah State. That was a positive. Now, Utah State's not a dominant force inside, but that's a team that's got some length, and they are solid. They're solid all around. They're better offensively than they are defensively, but Iowa really limited offensive rebounds, so that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Ray thought the Hawks looked subpar tonight. Free throw shooting was terrible. Fatigue, unmotivated. I'd say probably the latter. They're not fatigued. I mean, yeah, I know they went up to the Pentagon and played Utah State. They had like 10 days off, Ray. I think unmotivated is a good way to put it. And I think Fran, you'd have to give him the benefit of the doubt. If that was an issue tonight, it's going to be fixed. It's going to be fixed because they've got a dangerous team in 8 days. Now, the good news is they have 8 days, right? Now, you can say that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, I don't know, because when you have this much space between games, you worry about becoming lackadaisical, certainly taking for granted these wins. And again, they're not going to be able to do it. Eric brings up a good point. Western Illinois, 10-2. Brought up those, the only one of the 2 losses was against DePaul, and it was a close game. Let me pull up Western Illinois' schedule here while we're discussing it. Of course, Will Carius, the Bettendorf kid, is their leading scorer at 17 points a game. Western Illinois did lose to Eastern Michigan. Now, Eastern Michigan is 5-6. So Western Illinois is by no means Gonzaga, but that they've proven to be dangerous, and they've played Iowa before. They've been to Iowa City. Will Carius knows Carver. That's still a dangerous game. Did anybody catch the Iowa women today? I mean, you want to get depressed. Let's talk about the Iowa women blowing an 18-point lead to IUPUI at home as a top 15 Hawkeye team. That is depression. Okay. So I would hope that the Iowa men saw that and said, well, you can't, because IUPUI is very similar to Western Illinois. If you look at IUP women, they had blown out Butler. They had some good wins. They had played some teams close. They took, I believe it was Michigan to overtime, and Michigan was a top 25 team. So the Iowa women should have been fully aware of what IUPUI was capable of. And so there's no reason to take Western Illinois for granted at all. But again, I understand what you're saying, Ray. At times, again, free throw shooting wasn't terrible. I mean, I think we're judging them based on what we're used to, and what we're used to. And they brought it up. What we're used to is perhaps the best free throw shooting team in the Big Ten. Iowa did shoot free throws 72% tonight, Ray. So they were 18-25. So I understand the frustrations, maybe not quite up to par, but 72% isn't terrible. And again, it is what it is. They got the job done. Again, what I'd be focusing on right now, folks, you got to read between the lines in some of these non-conference games. Are they dominating teams on the boards? Because they need to be dominating teams like Sela. Okay. They need to be dominating them. And they did that tonight, 50-22. Are they giving up a ton of points, high percentages from the field? Well, tonight, no. Again, Sela shot 37%. Scored 62 for the game. And, Iowa turned the ball over 11 times, which is more than they had been. And forced 15 turnovers from Sela. So, I think this is a pretty routine game. I mean, again, I understand perhaps kind of not being motivated for this game, but overall, they got the job done. Well, while we're waiting for Gary here, again, feel free to give us a call. I'm going to pop the number up here in big print so you see it. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Again, talking about Iowa's 93-62 victory over Southeastern Louisiana, the Lions of Sela. I like to say that if you didn't notice. Iowa just one non-conference game left. It's against Western Illinois in 8 days, and then it's the gauntlet of the Big Ten season begins. But these games, again, are sparsely sprinkled throughout the schedule. So there are going to be some opportunities to be tripped up if you aren't locked in. And, maybe there were moments, they didn't really pull away until late. I shouldn't say late, but at least in that second half. So there are going to be moments where you're probably going to struggle to stay locked in. That's normal. I mean, Gary has talked about that in the past. That is a normal thing to at times struggle to stay motivated in a game where you are superior to your opponent. And so again, it is what it is. It's sort of normal. Patrick McCaffrey, 16 points, 5 of 10 from the field. He was good tonight. Jordan Bohannon, a good night. Nobody was spectacular. Bohannon was had 13 points, 4 of 8 from 3. Peyton Sandfort added 10 points. He's got to shoot the ball better. He was, I think, 2 of 7 tonight. He's young. He's a freshman. But, he's got length. He's got size. He's going to play if he's available, especially if a guy gets dinged up or two. He's going to have to log more minutes. And so he's going to have to shoot well because that's why he's in the game. Very similar to Jordan Bohannon. Now, Sandfort has length that Bohannon does not have, which would make you think he's going to be able to rebound the basketball at his position better than a guy like Jordan Bohannon. But nevertheless, he did score 10 tonight, and perhaps that gives him some motivation. But he's got to do it against big-time competition in the Big Ten. And so far, we've seen Peyton sort of up and down. We saw him make some threes early in the season. That's got to translate over, and he's got to score the ball effectively against the Big Ten. Darrell Hayden did number 4 throw a punch. It looked like it live, but we never got a replay in Carver. I actually missed that part of the game, Hayden. So if somebody wants to comment, I'll have to look back at that. I missed the whole series of the flagrant and with Joe Toussaint and whatnot. So yes, I that's what I was told. But again, if somebody else wants to comment on this, then you're more than welcome. You are more than welcome. All right. Keegan Murray. We mentioned him, 20 points, 10 boards. And again, efficiency is the bottom line with this kid. He's healthy now. You can see that ankle's not hindering him, whereas I believe it was during the Iowa State game. Gary Close brought that up himself, and it seemed like it was lingering in those games prior. We do have Gary Close on the line, I believe. Gary joining us by phone this evening. Coach Close, can you hear me? We can. First of all, how'd you enjoy the game? A good victory for the Hawkeyes and a routine win. Absolutely. And, Keegan Murray with his second career double-double tonight with 20 and 10, and I keep talking about his efficiency. He proves it every night. Is he going to have to I know he had foul trouble tonight, but this is a thought that popped into my head this evening. Is he going to have to shoot more once we get into Big Ten play? Because just 17 attempts tonight, but his efficiency seems to be so powerful for this squad.
Other people will chip in and take some of the load off, but he's certainly going to have to play well for them to be successful. That's where it all starts.
Absolutely. And let's get your take on the, I actually missed this segment of the game, but I keep hearing people talking about the flagrant foul. What happened? Was there a punch thrown? Can you take us through what you saw from there in the arena?
Yeah, I was kind of blocked. It was a loose ball and kind of a scramble and a pile up and wrestling around, and something must have happened in the pile up that the referee saw that kicked him out. Their coach didn't complain much about it, so I think it probably was a good call. And fortunately, the game just moved on fine, and there was nothing more beyond that. But kind of a scramble and a loose ball, and all of a sudden they're sending the guy to the shower. So it'll happen.
Absolutely. Iowa shooting 33 threes tonight. Was that a result just solely of how Southeastern Louisiana was playing and sticking with that zone for so long?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that they probably think they shot maybe a little bit too many. Because they had a huge size advantage inside. But when the ball did go in there, they collapsed and doubled and triple teamed and dug it out. And so they did get some threes on some in and out. So I think for them to be successful, they're going to have to get some inside offense too, because there'll be nights when the threes aren't dropping and you get the ball inside, you have a better chance of getting the free throw line, things like that. So tonight they didn't have to. The opponent wasn't good enough to stop them in either spot. So, but I think when they get into the Big Ten, the more versatile they can be in terms of scoring inside out will help.
Okay, so one of the big concerns with Iowa right now, at least recently, has been rebounding. We saw them with an impressive performance on the boards against Utah State. Tonight, you got to read between the lines. I understand that due to the opponent, but Iowa dominated the boards 50 to, I believe, 32. Is that the sort of domination that you should see out of a team that you're concerned with against this inferior competition?
Yeah, they should dominate. They should dominate a team like this, and they did a nice job. I think they only had one offensive rebound in the first half, and they missed a fair amount of shots. Iowa did have a decided height advantage, and they weren't sending too many people to the glass, probably for fear of the transition defense, which wasn't all that great either.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Kind of got caught halfway between nowhere, not going to the boards and not getting back. So, but it looked like they had done a better job of screening out and going to get the ball. But like you said, the opponent in terms of rebounding wasn't real stiff. But hey, you put up the numbers and then you move on.
Yeah, and they did what they needed to do against the opponent. And as far as defense is concerned, I know it's not a black and white thing. You can't just look at a stat sheet or a box score and say Iowa played good defense. But they did hold Southeastern Louisiana to 37% shooting from the field, 36 from outside. They missed, obviously Sela missed a lot of free throws, but defensively, was Iowa better today? Not saying they weren't good against Utah State, but that first half was kind of a struggle on Saturday. Were they better today?
I'm not sure. I thought they were fine. Like you said, the competition was not real good. They missed some shots around the basket that better teams will make. They had some breakdowns, but all in all, solid effort, and they got to build upon it. I thought the second half of Utah State was probably better than what it was tonight, but the numbers are the numbers, and you're getting pretty picky when you beat a team by 30 and hold them to under 40%, and that's pretty solid effort. So it's a good one to build on, and they've got one more game before the Big Ten starts, so it'll be here before you know it.
Chris Murray with just 1 point in 10 minutes. What was going on with Chris tonight? Did you notice?
He looked a little lethargic. I don't know if he was feeling under the weather. He didn't get a whole lot of minutes, so maybe there's something there, but that's just purely a guess. But he'll bounce back.
Maybe it was that turkey.
Maybe you gotta watch out.
Maybe he had some turkey yesterday and it was stuck with him. Okay.
There you go.
I know you've got to get moving out of the arena. So the last question I want to ask you, Gary,
sure.
Western Illinois this next week, 8 days away. It's another long break, and I don't like how the schedule is made up during December here. Western Illinois is a dangerous team. We've talked about them. They nearly beat DePaul. They did beat Nebraska in Lincoln. How does Iowa avoid a letdown and kind of getting distracted with these next 8 days of prep?
Well, the coach is Rob Jeter, and of course he played for Bo Ryan and coached with him, and so they'll play a lot like Wisconsin. I'm guessing. I have not seen them play, but that would be my guess. And so they'll take care of the ball and probably play pretty good defense and not beat themselves. So that's what Iowa's going to have to do. And it's probably a good test for them to get ready for the Big Ten. They're going to have to take care of the ball and play solid defense and try to beat them at their game. So I think it'll be like I said, I have not seen them play, but their record's impressive, and I know they'll be well coached and play hard. So when you take that into account as well as the time off, that could be an interesting game.
One more comment here. I know Circle Herc made a comment on our chat here about Joe Toussaint taking the lick and keeping his cool. It's always a risk when you elbow or you hit a kid from New York like Joe Toussaint. Yeah. I give him a lot of credit for composing himself and not retaliating.
For sure, because they need him out there, and
yeah, they do.
And that's where you got to try to keep your cool. It's tough to do.
Well, Coach, appreciate it as always. Have a safe trip back to Wisconsin, and we will talk to you after Western Illinois next week.
Yeah. Happy holidays for all the Hawkeye fans out there.
Appreciate it, Gary. Have a great night.
Take care, Corey. You bet. Bye-bye.
Appreciate Coach Gary Close joining us this evening. And As always, the effort to make this show happen on the part of Gary is always appreciated. So our line is open if you want to give us a call. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. And yes, Circle Herc, you are right. Huge credit to Joe. Again, I missed that play, but I'm going to be watching that back this evening after we get off this show. I'm going to be watching that back, and so I'll probably tweet out about it. So yeah, but no, certainly elbowing or punching, whatever happened there with Joe Toussaint, for him to keep his composure and keep his cool, that is an impressive thing. And he's got to be a leader on this team. I don't care if Jordan Bohannon is there. I don't care if Connor McCaffrey's there. Joe Toussaint's the point guard. All right, now you may think that Aaron Ulis deserves to start. I understand where you're coming from. Aaron, I thought, was good tonight. Ended up with just 4 points. But it seems to me when he's on the floor, he's just getting better. Each game, Aaron Ulis seems to be, and I think he's got great vision. He's a good passer. Not a great three-point shooter yet. He's going to have to figure that out. He just shot one tonight. Sort of like Joe Toussaint. You hope that three ball can develop. Sometimes we hear of the kids, and this will be a question I guess we could have asked Gary, but sometimes if a kid can't shoot out of high school, he's not going to be able to shoot at this level. Now, we have seen exceptions to that rule. Guys developing a shot once they get to the Big Ten. But oftentimes a guy may be able to shoot well in high school, and then it just doesn't translate right away. But if a kid's not shooting well in high school, then it's probably never going to be there. So I haven't looked at Aaron Ulis's numbers in high school, but he certainly doesn't look like a natural three-point shooter. That would be a little bit of a concern. He is a good mid-range finisher. He knows how to attack the basket. He knows how to draw fouls. And again, he's a very good passer. And he plays under control. That's the one thing I would give him, obviously, over Joe Toussaint. It's very, very rare that Aaron Ulis, if ever, it's very rare that he is out of control when he's on the court. And that's huge. That is big. Iowa needs somebody who's cool, calm, and collected to lead them. And I think Aaron Ulis certainly has an opportunity to be the future at point guard. Joe Toussaint could come back for 2 more years. I have no idea what the plan is. I don't know what Fran's thinking on the COVID extra year of eligibility is. I have no idea what his thought process is there. Of course, you have Dasonte Bowen coming in next year. So you wonder, if you've got 3 natural point guards on the roster, do you really want Joe Toussaint to come back for another year after that? If he's not improving significantly, I don't know that you want him back for 23-24. And I don't know, would Joe Toussaint want to come back for 23-24? Would he have some pro opportunities in Europe? That's a possibility. He's not playing in the NBA, but would he have some opportunities overseas? That's a possibility. So, again, good recruiting class coming in next year, and that will help the point guard position. But again, Aaron Ulis looking, I think, good at that point guard position. Kind of a quiet night for Tony Perkins, 8 points, 1 of 3 from the field. Again, I understand. I go back to Ray's comment about just sort of a lackadaisical, or maybe I hate to say not focused or unmotivated. I know that was the word that Ray used, but again, that is a natural thing to happen in games like this. Heck, these kids know they've played 6 games. They played 6 games to start the season against teams that had no business playing in Carver. Now, they're called bye games for a reason. They get their paycheck and they leave. The only game that was even mildly a test was that North Carolina Central game. And even that wasn't close at the end of the game. So at some point, I think you have to be concerned about your kids having a letdown. And I think, certainly the last hurdle there would be this next game against Western Illinois. So I tend to think, even though it's been sort of a weird schedule, having that long break with finals before you play Utah State, and then you play 2 games, and then a long break before you play Western Illinois. Despite that, I think it's actually a good thing they get a little bit more time off, because I think there are things to clean up from tonight. We don't know what Josh Agundalay's injury is or what the status of Chris Murray is. Again, just played 10 minutes tonight. I have no idea why. And maybe there was nothing going on with Chris. We'll have to hear Fran McCaffrey. I'll get a chance to listen to his press conference after this show as well. But it'll give whoever's banged up a chance to heal some more. I have to think Keegan Murray, again, he looks healthy, but another week off for that ankle probably wouldn't be a bad thing. So you get him an extra week. They're going to need some prep time. I know they're probably going to go home with their families over the holiday break here. At least some of them will. I have no idea what the rules on for traveling, what the rules are for these kids. But there's going to need to be some prep. These kids are familiar with Western Illinois, but it's a better team than they have played in the past. And again, they're familiar with Will Carius. He's their leading scorer. He's an Iowa kid. Again, grew up in Bettendorf, for Pete's sake. So he's going to be coming in here ready to play, not intimidated by the situation. And I'm just hopeful. I saw the attendance on the final box score from University of Iowa. The final attendance was just under 11,000. I don't know if there were 11,000 seats in that arena. I didn't want to ask Coach Close that, but these fans got to start showing up, folks. If we think this team's going to be able to make the tournament, there needs to be fans in these seats. We saw a great crowd in Sioux Falls for the game against Utah State. Fans got to start showing up for this game. They got to start showing up for this game, and for any game, not just the Western Illinois game, but any game moving forward, especially in the Big Ten. And I hope that will happen. Again, I don't know what we're waiting for. If you think you don't need to show up to games until Iowa starts winning. I mean, right now, if the tournament were tomorrow, I know Iowa's only beaten really two good teams, and neither one of those teams are top 25 teams. Iowa's probably in right now. I mean, there's no reason to even talk about that because there is no tournament at this point in the season, and Iowa hasn't played a great schedule. But the win at Virginia and in a neutral court against Utah State are good wins. They're probably in right now. I understand there's frustration losing as much as they did by as much as they did against Iowa State. I get that. The loss against Purdue should have been I know fans were encouraged by that. And the Illinois game, I mean, heck, that was a home game, and the crowd wasn't that impressive for that game. Fans need to start showing up. And I know it's easier for me to say this being a talking head from Ames. But for Iowa fans that are local there, some may not be comfortable due to COVID. I get that, respect that. But if you're just not showing up to these games because you don't care or you don't think you need to, I am a bit critical of that. Every fan has a right to spend their money the way they want to. But I see I'll say this, I see a lot of other Big Ten fan bases packing in more people than Iowa has packed in, even for some of these lower tier games. I'll just say this. So again, I hope that changes. They're going to have a gauntlet coming up. They get Maryland, and they go on the road and play at Madison. It's going to get tough. And this, I mean, I'm not saying that Utah State was because of the crowd up there in Sioux Falls, but this team deserves a crowd. All right. This team deserves a crowd. Don, Keegan went straight to the locker room. Ankle was barking. Yeah. I think it's probably a good thing they get 8 days off. Because even though Keegan has looked more explosive, 8 days is not going to hurt him given the injury. That's good to see that little gap on the schedule for him to get some more rest for that ankle. Eric, need to get a few Big Ten wins under their belt. Absolutely. You're 0-2 in the Big Ten. You're going to have 18 games, and there aren't many nights off. You're going to have to sweep Penn State and Nebraska. You got to win all of those games. You cannot afford to drop a game against Penn State or Nebraska. And remember, there's less margin for error for the tournament due to the weak schedule. So as much as we want to say, well, Fran, and I understand why Fran did it, but as much as we want to say Fran scheduled, November and December because this team is young and they need wins, you're also not giving your team an opportunity to build a resume. Because believe you me, I don't care how many wins you get against the likes of CLA, all right, and Western Michigan. I don't care how many of those games you win. It does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. It actually does harm to your strength of schedule. All right, so it does nothing positive for you. And the bottom line is they're going to have to get wins, and they're going to have to win. Again, Penn State and Nebraska aren't great wins, but those are Big Ten games. You've got to win those games because I think it's going to be tough to really win. I think it's going to be tough to reach the 10 win mark. If Iowa wins 10 Big Ten games this year, I will be pleasantly shocked. Okay? Pleasantly shocked. The Big Ten is good. We saw them struggle early in the Big East Big Ten Challenge, the GABA games. They bounced back by beating the ACC in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Ohio State beat Duke a little later. And then, of course, we saw Maryland beat Florida the other night. Teams are winning right now in the Big Ten. Minnesota just beat Michigan. Ohio State looks really good. Wisconsin has beaten Houston. They've beaten, St. Mary's. That's a good Wisconsin team. Northwestern looks better. Again, we saw Northwestern start hot last year and then cool down as the season proceeded. But again, there is no reason to think that teams like Northwestern, Maryland, etc., can't beat Iowa. So again, Iowa's going to struggle to get to 10 wins in the Big Ten. You've got to win the games that are winnable. I'd like to think, again, you have to sweep Nebraska, Penn State. It'd be really nice if you could sweep Northwestern, Maryland. It's going to, again, now we've seen this team, with that being said, we've seen this Iowa team compete on the road against the likes of Purdue. All right, so not saying Iowa can't go into Michigan State and win, not saying Iowa can't go to Illinois and win, but it's going to be tough, all right, especially if Iowa doesn't have a big man they can count on. The real Hayden, yes, he appreciate your support at these games. And again, traveling from Des Moines is tough, especially if we're talking midweek games. I get that, but I would like to think there's enough Iowa fans there in Iowa City that are at home during games like this that very easily could be at the games. I'd love to think so. Wrestling, getting huge turnouts. They sold out their season tickets. Now, I don't know how many fans they have on a nightly basis at wrestling meets, but I would venture to say there are a lot of people who live in Iowa City and the surrounding area who are staying home when they very easily could be at the game. And again, that's your decision. I'm encouraging you strongly to support this team because this team can be an NCAA tournament team, but they need support of their fan base. Yakov 22, if Iowa or anyone else has an above 500 Big Ten record, they will be in the tourney. Absolutely, but Yakov 22, they're 0-2. So even if they go 10-10, or excuse me, even if they go 9-9 from here on out, they're under 500. So, 10-8 would put you at 10-10. That would put you at 10-10. Perhaps that's enough, but and I think it probably is. 9-9 would be tough. Again, that means you're 9-11 in the Big Ten. I think if you go 8-10 from here on out, that's where I start thinking that's not going to be enough. Not with that non-conference schedule. Not with the lack of marquee wins. It depends on who those wins are against. I get that. But 8-10, again, would put you at 8-12. You probably would need to do some work in the Big Ten tournament at that point. A couple wins at least. And again, we don't know what's going to happen across the country with teams on the bubble. Eric, valid point. He thinks Carver needs to be reconfigured, in my opinion. At least get the students around the court as opposed to having one singular section of students all the way. That's ridiculous. I've always thought that was ridiculous. Iowa knows it's ridiculous. They refuse to do anything about it, and it's just frustrating. Look at the ISZone. Look at the Breslin Center. It is hopping every night with students. And I'll say this too. Let these students in for free. All right. I don't always agree with everything the Iowa media has to say. Pat Hardy, like him or not, he is a guy I've listened to in the past on this very subject. He has brought up the fact that there's no reason not to let students in for free. Absolutely agree with him. There is no reason not to let Iowa students in for free. All right. Now, charging them $5 or whatever. We need to create motivation for students to want to come here. All right. And making them wait a half an hour for an ice cream cone and sit up in the top row in the worst seats in the house behind the backboard, behind the each basket. That is not how you're going to get students to come out on a cold day to Carver. All right. I think they should let students in for free. I see what Drake is doing against, who do they play tomorrow? Chicago State, I believe, right? Chicago State played Iowa State tonight. They play Drake tomorrow in a rescheduled game. And Drake's letting fans in for free. Bring a canned good item, and you can go into the Knapp Center and watch that game. That's called smart marketing. That's called smart marketing. All right. If you nickel and dime people to death, they will nickel and dime you to death. And that's what's happening at times, I believe, with Iowa students. Students need to show up, but I believe it's the university's responsibility to give these students motivation to show up. These students are paying thousands and thousands of dollars in tuition fees. And yet we're going to nickel and dime them to get them to come see Iowa versus CLA. That's just ridiculous. So if Gary Barta, if you're listening, I'm calling you out. I'm calling the university out. Somebody needs to figure out a way. And I just told you the way. It's not that hard. And it wasn't my idea. But lots of other people have said this first. Let the students in for free. Put them in a different spot in the arena. It will help the environment. And it will cause other fans to want to show up as well. Again, it's every fan's responsibility to support this team, regardless of what you think of Carver, regardless of what you think of the setup. But it is your responsibility as a university to give these students motivation to come to these games. Yakov 22. Do have to keep in mind they are 0-2 against two of the best teams in the Big Ten. Both games are very competitive. Absolutely. Illinois and Purdue may be the two best teams. I think Ohio State is one of the two best teams, in my opinion. But I agree with what you're saying. And you're right. But at the same time, now you don't have margin for error. At least you win one of those early two games. Maybe you give yourself some margin for error. But that's why I keep saying you're going to have to sweep these teams like Northwestern, Nebraska, potentially a team like Maryland, Minnesota. You're going to have to win those games. I think to get to 9 wins, which I think is the magic number from here on out, to get to 9 wins, I believe you need a minimum of 9 wins. Again, I don't think 8 and 8 and 10, 8 and 12 overall. Boy, that does not look good with this schedule. You need to get to 9 wins to have a legitimate shot at the tournament, assuming you do nothing in the Big Ten tournament. And even then, I don't think it's guaranteed. I don't think it's a guarantee that if Iowa ends up 9-11 in the Big Ten Conference in the regular season and they lose in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament, I don't think that's any guarantee that they make the NCAA tournament. M. Finn, we've been saying that for decades. I'm assuming you're talking about the students. Yeah, I know. Again, it's not my idea. It's not original. I don't have that idea trademarked, but it's absolutely the truth. Get these students into the games. And if they're not coming, ask yourself why. Don't ask them why. Ask yourself why. Sometimes Iowa doesn't do a good job of looking in the mirror, I don't think. No moral victories. Yep, you're absolutely right. But here's the deal. That Purdue game was as close of a moral victory as you can have. But you're right, Real Hayden, you're going to have to translate it over and start winning Big Ten games. They got to come out guns blazing. That game at Wisconsin, if you could knock off the Badgers in Madison in game 4 of the Big Ten, because you don't want to start 1-3. They probably will start 1-3, assuming they can beat Maryland. But Lord, if you lose to Maryland and you're on the verge of going 0-4, you're really behind the 8 ball. So boy, that Maryland game is so important. And then you give yourself at least some momentum heading into what will be a huge, colossal game in Madison. And again, a place where Iowa has struggled, although they did win, I believe, last year up at Wisconsin. All right. See if I missed any comments. Eric, the Iowa women were depressing. I feel sorry for them. They had some injuries early. Some Sharon Goodman being one. They lost some players before the season even started, and I think they were a little bit overranked. That's just my opinion. They did not look good against Duke. They did not look great against Central Florida. They certainly did not look good today against IUPUI, and I know they were up by 18, but to blow a lead against IUPUI, I don't care if IUPUI beat Butler by 50, and Butler's terrible. That's a game that Iowa should absolutely, not only should they not have lost, they should have won that game by 20 plus. If you're a top 25 team and you have IUPUI coming in to Carver, that shouldn't even be a game. And I think, again, I think they'll figure it out, but they are down. They are down to a point now where, without Goodman, they haven't really had any performances that have been real eye-opening. You kind of assumed, not at least against great teams. I mentioned Duke in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. That was not a good performance for the Iowa women. I feel like Caitlin Clark pressing a little bit. We saw Monica Sonano really struggle inside defensively tonight. they're kind of like the Iowa men from the last couple of years. Not a whole lot of athleticism, and I don't think athleticism is as important in the women's game. But again, down low, Sonano really struggled tonight, and the girl from IUPUI, I mean, just outballed her. And sometimes that happens, but again, not a good loss for the Iowa women. They're going to have to figure out a way to bounce back. Yakov 22, 0-2 is a tough start. They bring a similar effort as they did against Purdue. Should get a good amount of Big Ten wins. And Yakov 22, I look forward to the Ohio State game. I really look forward to that Ohio State game, whenever that is. Let me find that game, because Ohio State, to me, might be the best team in the Big Ten right now. And you may say, well, hold on a second. Purdue is the best team. That Ohio State-Purdue game is going to be one of the best games in the country all year. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Let me find out when Iowa plays Ohio State, because, man alive, the Buckeyes have looked good so far this season. So Iowa doesn't play Ohio State until February. They go to Columbus to play them on February 3rd. And Ohio State now is 0-2. They blew out Wisconsin their last time out. They are unbeaten in the Big Ten Conference. Of course, they lost on the last second shot to Florida. They beat Duke, did lose to Xavier. But the two losses, again, are against Xavier on the road, Florida on a neutral court. That is a really good Ohio State team. And again, they've played a tough schedule. They get New Orleans next. And again, Iowa on the 3rd. But the Purdue-Ohio State game on January 30th in West Lafayette is going to be a slobber knocker. And they only play Purdue once. So that game will be massive. Will be absolutely massive. And again, could determine, still early, I know, late February, but very well could determine who wins this conference outright. All right. Somebody asked a question here about the Iowa women attendance. According to what I'm seeing, 4,600 people showed up to the IUPUI game today. 4,600. Now, I don't know what I know the normal is not 4,600. I think it would do Iowa good to use the Extreme Arena, the new arena there in Iowa City, for women's games. Although maybe it's not going to, I think it holds 6,000, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe somebody will correct me on that. But a game like this where you're playing mid-afternoon, you're not going to get more than 4,000 or 5,000. And that would create a better environment. But the bottom line is, regardless of environment, Iowa has no business losing to IUPUI. So hopefully that answers your question there, Yakov 22. I see Patrick's comment here. Do you ever think Fran just goes in and talks to Barta and really pushes him to get Carver fixed? Well, Fran does not have nearly as much power in this athletic department as we know. That, for instance, that Kirk Ferentz has. We know that. Fran was a product of Gary, and I think Gary's got a little bit of power over Fran too, given some of Fran's antics over the years. He's got suspended a couple times, and I wonder, Fran's been a lot more docile here these last few seasons, and I wonder if it's not a product of acknowledging the fact that, hey, I'm on the verge of striking out here with the administration. So, I'm not saying he'd get fired if he got suspended again, but boy, how many times are you going to allow your head coach to get suspended for going nuts on an official? That's a question, but I don't think Fran really goes in there and pushes it. I would like to think he does. I would love for somebody to ask Fran that question. I would love to hear somebody ask Fran, have you ever pushed? I don't know how you'd phrase that question, because you want to be respectful in how you ask that question, but have you ever lobbied for a change in the configuration of Carver Hawkeye Arena? Again, we're not talking about how the arena was built. We're talking about where students are, what it takes to get students in there, and so forth. Spaghetti Factory. Carver was rocking tonight. Are we being sarcastic? Was it rocking tonight? Oh. Yeah. The loudest. Did Iowa wrestling win tonight? Yeah, they played tonight, didn't they? South Carolina State. That wasn't Carver, though. Where did they play? I didn't even watch this is how little I know about Iowa wrestling, Spaghetti Factory. Iowa wrestling. Let me look this up. Somebody can maybe tell me, but I know there was obviously a period of time between the women and the men's games, but I don't believe Iowa Wrestling wrestled in Carver tonight, did they? I know they wrestled against North Carolina State. Yeah, in Florida. Yeah, okay. So what are we talking about, Spaghetti? We're talking about the basketball game. It was the loudest. It was rocking tonight. I don't know about that. From what I saw, I wouldn't say it was rocking. Again, 10,000 reported. I don't think there were 10,000 in there. Again, I wasn't there, but I don't believe that's the case. Jakob 22. They built Carver in 1983. Not a good time to ask for money, but might be time for a multi-million-dollar renovation. That ain't happening. That's just not happening. And you're right, not a good time to ask for money, but they did just spend how many millions of dollars on renovating Kinnick in the north end zone. And again, yeah, you're not the only person, the real Hayden. I've heard this from dozens and dozens of fans over the years that Iowa needs to build a new arena. Where are they going to build it? Are they just going to tear Carver down and rebuild? I don't think the answer necessarily, you can't just tear it down without trying to fix it as it is. And again, I think it can be remedied. I think you can better the experience there without actually looking at a structural remedy. I think there are ways to better the game day experience. For instance, maybe get more ice cream lines so that there's not a 50-person line at halftime against Sela. Okay? Perfect example. Perhaps having some sort of a way for older people to be able to get down to the floor section without having to walk down a million steps. I don't have an answer. Is it a conveyor system? Is that crazy? Is there a way to install a conveyor system for older people? I mean, it's seriously ridiculous to have these older people who are the ones paying money for better seats having to hike all the way down and back up to get out of there at Carver. That's ridiculous as well. But again, you start with students, you let them in free, you give them incentive to come, you redistribute where student seating is, and you can say, well, we're going to upset the donors and the season ticket holders. You don't have to disrupt the donors, okay? Season ticket holders will learn to deal with it because season ticket holders who are there want to see Iowa win. And I think real fans who understand the game of basketball and understand what a home court advantage is would rather the environment get better, get more hostile, get more home friendly, than be able to sit 3 rows further down. That's just my opinion. All right. And there are other things you can do with seating and whatnot. Again, Kinnick is a perfect example. The fans are right on top of you. There are other things you can do to assist in trying to make the environment more, I don't want to use the word hostile, but that's what it is, right? Hostile, relatively speaking, again, relative to college basketball. All right. We kind of went on a rant here. Spaghetti Factory, yeah, maybe give out some amphetamines. That would possibly help. Let's take our next call here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
This is David from Indiana again.
David, how are you tonight, sir?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I mean, that was not the most inspiring performance in the world, but they got the job done.
They got the job done. They moved a lot better from the last time we watched them. I thought they had a lot better off-ball movement and were a lot more cutters. So I thought that was good to see. Don't know if it was just the nature of the opponent or if it was more of an emphasis on that.
Well,
but
Sela is not very good.
I thought it was no, they're not very good. But,
I don't mean to simplify it, but they're just not very good.
Yeah, I mean they're not very, but at least they were cutting. I mean before we played 4 games, they just cut. Now they were moving the ball well. You're talking about Carver Hawkeye, the Carver Hawkeye Arena, the experience there. When it was first built, I'm 50 years old. I remember when it was first built, when it first opened, and it was rocking. I mean, we had teams though. We built it at Lute Olson had left already. I mean, he might have been there 1 year when it opened. And he had some great teams, and then Raveling came in and had great recruiting, and we had great players. And then Dr. Tom, I mean, he was always in the NCAA tournament. I mean,
yeah.
I can't. And
when you had those kind of teams, I mean, Carver was packed. The students were there. It's going to, I mean, Fran's got the teams, but he's just not hitting the NCAA appearances as often. They're not, I mean, seems like the years they're supposed to challenge for the Big Ten, they always go down the stretch and they stumble a few times. And until we start really competing for the Big Ten championship and getting one or two of those championships, I just think that's what's really is the problem with the Carver Hawkeye right now. Is just it's still a great venue. I mean, people come in there and they love the. We're talking about spend what 5-6 years ago was they redo the practice facility and the locker rooms in there because they were outdated in coaches' offices.
Yeah.
So they just spent a multi-million-dollar renovation on Carver. So I don't know what's going to. It's packed and it gets loud in there when there's an opponent coming in.
What do you think though? Because obviously you're a longtime Iowa fan. So what do you think of the students? And because there aren't students at these games, sir. I mean, I'm not at the games, but were there any students at the game tonight?
I don't know. I live in Indiana, so I don't get back for very many basketball games. But when it was first built, students were there all the time. Like I said, it was the teams that we had. I mean, we're getting better talent, but I still think we're still having a hangover from the Licklider and Steve Alford era. I mean, it's just, I don't know. People aren't invested right now as much as they are in football.
There have been years where Iowa fans really did show out. But I even think back to the Alford era. There were years where I remember Carver rocking during Alford's time here. So it can happen. I just think, and I understand what you're saying about winning in the tournament, but I just think when you're struggling with attendance, which Iowa is at least right now, because you set up, first of all, it's the university also, you have to admit the schedule has something to do with it. I mean, do fans really want to come out there? Do students want to come out to watch Iowa beat CLA by 40? I mean, that's...
Yeah, no. I mean, you're right. Like, so if we get teams coming in, they're going to pack it. I mean, even when Licklider was there, when we beat Purdue, when we were, last in the Big Ten, and we beat Purdue, and they were like, what were they, in the top 10 or something like that, and we beat them at home. And when Michigan State came in about 7 years ago, and they were ranked number 1, and we beat them at home, I mean, it was packed. It gets packed. But I mean, right now you guys will look at the time of the year. I mean, the students aren't in at the university right now. They're all at home on Christmas break. I mean, it's a, plus the games, when they tip off at, well, I guess tonight was 7 because it's 8 o'clock here, but 7 o'clock back in Iowa. But I don't know. I mean, I think this time of year you're not going to get that very many fans coming in. It's kind of always been that way though at Iowa. So
would you be okay with a system where you moved seating around to where you can have students all around the court as opposed to one long section behind one of the backboards?
I would like to see them do something like what Michigan State does, where they or the Cameron Crazies, where they have the students like the first 3 or 4 rows around the whole arena.
Right. Exactly. It's exactly what I'm talking about.
There's times on the Iowa bench side that end, they don't have any seats there. There's no bleachers. Where on the other side, on the visitors side, that end line, they have bleachers right up close to the backboard, but on the other side they don't. And I don't understand that at all. I don't know if it's like a fire thing, like a code thing, but I don't know why they don't have stands right there behind that basket too. So because there's a good 20-30 feet behind that basket to the first set of rows of the stands there.
Well, and you're right. I think students are on break, but how many students are? I mean, I guess that students are traveling home. I'd like to think there are still enough students to where you can have some. Again, maybe they didn't pan up to the. Usually, when they don't pan into the student section, it's because there's not students up there. And even before winter break, there weren't students showing up for these early games, were there? I didn't see any students. Very few students at any of these early games.
There was a lot of people. There was a lot of people there for Illinois. There was a lot of people there for Illinois. That was packed. That was a pretty packed house for Illinois. You could hear them pretty all on the screen.
Yeah, that was the best environment. You're right. And that was coming off that Purdue game. So that you're right. That was the best environment thus far. And I just hope I hope you're right too. And again, I understand sometimes it's a struggle if it's a 6 p.m. game on a weekday. It makes it difficult for people, but I don't think that should affect students at all. I just hope the students show up. And my opinion, I keep saying this, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but my opinion is if the students aren't showing up, don't ask the students why, ask yourself why. And I'm talking about the administration. Whatever we can do to get students in. And Iowa, for some reason, is anti letting the students in for free. And I've never understood that. What is the harm in letting students in for free? Are we really going to lose that much revenue off that?
Yeah, I have no idea. I can tell you this. My daughter graduated from the university. And when she was there, I would be like, hey, you going to go to the basketball game tonight? She goes, oh, there's a basketball game tonight? I mean,
yeah.
I don't even know if they're promoting it very well. She went to every football game. She would go to maybe basketball games. I don't know why they don't. Even if they were to do something, what they were to allow them in for free, you have basically you go get senior season tickets for the students, and they can say, you get these choice of games for free, and then they divvy it out between the students who want to go. But I mean, I don't think they promoted basketball very well while she was there, and she graduated in 2018 from university there. So the 4 years she hardly ever knew there was a basketball game happening unless I called her.
Yeah. Well, all I know is, this is we're coming up to a stretch which is crucial for Iowa. You can't have a stretch where you lose again I think you need to beat Maryland, which is the next game on the Big Ten schedule. You need to beat the likes of Penn State, Nebraska. Iowa doesn't have much margin for error, and I just wish the students, and maybe they will, maybe the students will show up, maybe the fans will show up once winter break or class resumes and everything. Maybe they will show up. But once we hit January, it's a full go for 2 months to build that resume, because right now there's not much on it.
Yeah, we used to do when I was growing up back in Iowa, and I grew up in Marshalltown, they would have certain nights like tonight where they knew they weren't going to get maybe the students were out or whatever, they would give out to high school kids, and so like even in Marshalltown, they'd say, hey, for the first 500 high school students to get in free. And so my dad would take me to those games because he didn't have to pay for the ticket for me. I would go sit in the student section, and he got to go sit in general seating. And he had to pay for only one ticket because he would get there early. So they used to do that a lot. I don't know why they're not doing that anymore.
What did you graduate from Marshall High School, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, so did I.
Yeah. Oh, did you? What year did you graduate?
14.
Oh wow, man, you're so old there, Corey.
I know.
I graduated in '90.
Okay. Yeah, so we share a common theme there, and I know Coach Close, his wife grew up in Marshalltown, so there's a lot of Marshalltown roots in this show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's they used to do all kinds of things like that for tickets to get people in. And again, if they would just even hand it out to the high school kids there in Iowa City, in Cedar Rapids, there's quite a few high schools there.
Yeah.
Get those kids coming to the game, get them coming on a regular basis. They're going to want to continue that when they come to the university as a student. So I just think they probably need to do a little better with that. I
agree with you, sir, wholeheartedly.
All right, well, I'll let you go. I just wanted to call in and say I was impressed with the way the team played tonight. Obviously, it wasn't a very good opponent, but like I said, I saw a lot more cutting and diving to the basket and good passing. That's pretty good. Absolutely. No, they took care of business, and on to the next one. All right. We'll talk to you later. All right, sir. Have a great night. Appreciate that call. And he's right. I mean, there are other ways to do it other than just letting students in free. There are promotions you can do. I mean, I can't stand this, I don't know if they do it anymore, but the halftime, if you make a half-court shot, you win a pizza from Quick Star. I mean, stuff like that. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I know maybe that doesn't give fans to the half-court stuff at halftime doesn't get fans anyways, but the man here, would you rather watch a football game on TV or live? I'm assuming you mean in person.
Well, I would rather watch it in person. I'm not a guy who's. I mean, listen. Best seat in the house. I understand people say that when you have a 4K 60-inch TV, but I'd rather be there at Kinnick. I did not make it to Kinnick this year primarily because of this show. Well, because of our show with Don Patterson, but I'd rather be there. I don't care if it's cold. I don't care if it's hot. Now, some fans are different, and I understand if you're older, you got to worry about your health, especially with COVID. Everybody's got to think about that and make their own decisions based on the virus and whatnot. But I would rather be at the game. Absolutely. Agree with this comment by Eric. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not trying to knock the Iowa fan base. There are times when I've been at Iowa games, and I know it's kind of that way everywhere, but it takes forever. It's an older fan base too. It takes forever sometimes for fans to get into a game. They finally get into a game, and they're on a 10-0 run, and the opponent scores 2 points, and everybody sits down and quiets down. And that, to me, you got to amp it up a little bit. But again, starts with the students. All right, Brian Butch. This is a former Wisconsin guy. I'm assuming he played under Gary Close. I haven't asked Gary. I'm thinking he did, because I think Brian. I don't know when Brian was there, but he's was on the postgame show with Rick Pizzo and Rafael Davis. Brian Butch is a guy from Wisconsin, and he said after the game tonight that Iowa is a top 20 team. He said, obviously, not right now, as far as rankings are concerned, they just lost by 20 to Iowa State. But he said this is a top 20 team. So take that for what you may. Again, I don't. I won't go that far right now. They got to prove it. They got to beat somebody and beat anybody. I mean, Utah State's a good win. At Virginia is a good win. Those are not great wins. They need to beat somebody in the top 25 for me to say this team is potentially top 25 good. And that's hopefully that answers the question from Ray here. The man here, how would you compare your city of Ames to Iowa City? Are we talking Hilton versus Carver? Because I would compare Hilton and Carver very simply. Hilton's loud, Carver's not. Hate to say it. I'm an Iowa guy, not an Iowa State fan, but Hilton is loud. Carver is very rarely loud. Now, I've been to Carver when it's rocking. Don't get me wrong. I've been to Carver when it's rocking. But I've also been to Hilton when it's rocking, and it's loud. It was loud for the Iowa State game this past month, earlier this month. So, and the city of Ames, I think the city of Ames is a nice city. I think Iowa City is a real nice city. There aren't really any bad areas of Ames for the most part. A couple blocks here and there of town, but it's a very nice, clean city. A little bit smaller than Iowa City and Coralville, of course. But I like the community, and that's one of the reasons why we live here. Ray says he went to Wyoming for college. Free student admission, arena auditorium rocks a lot louder than Carver with half the student population. And it helps. You go over to the rack at Rutgers. It's loud. It's like a high school gym, but it's loud. That's why I say, if you're going to have women's games in the afternoon, send them over to Extreme Arena. I know there's probably a fee to have to pay over there or play over there. Send them over there. It's going to be loud when you get 4,000 to 5,000 fans in a small little arena like that. That's just, again, my opinion. Yakov 22, are you going to the bowl game? I am not. Couple of reasons. First of all, I know Don Patterson is going to the bowl game. I do have family in the area. Went to the Outback Bowl back in 2016. So the last time, I guess was that the last time they were in Florida? Because they went 17. See, who did they play? Yes. No, 16. It would have been the 17 game. It was after the 16 season. So it was the 2017 Outback Bowl. Went down to Tampa Bay for that. And then, of course, in 17, they were at the Pinstripe. 18. Who did they play in 18? Boy, I'm not thinking well right now. 2018. Man, I am drawing a blank, folks. Somebody help me out. Who did Iowa play in 2018 in a bowl game after the 18 season? I know 19 was the USC game, which I did not go to in San Diego, but I think the last time Iowa was in Florida was the 16-17 season, if I'm not mistaken. Spaghetti Factory says NYC. Well, no, it wasn't NYC because that was the 17. That was the 17 game, Spaghetti Factory. That was after the 17 season. I'm trying to figure out who they played after the 18 season. And all these years are just starting to I used to be able to remember, and I still, for the most part, can remember every Iowa season for at least the last 15 years and what their record was and who they played, but I am drawing a blank on 2018. So somebody help me. Okay. While we're waiting on that answer, the man here, how did Coach Patterson take the loss to Navy? I did ask him about that, and he was disappointed, but that's a hard-fought game every year. Obviously, Navy played their tails off. That linebacker for Navy was spectacular. It was a good game. I watched that game, and I'm not usually a guy who watches the Army-Navy game, but it was a really good game. Thank you. This is the correct answer. Mississippi State. So that was the last time. I was mistaken. That's the last time they were down in Florida. They were down there for the 18th season for the Outback Bowl. So, yeah, Iowa, I guess, I wasn't at that game either. Not that I wouldn't go back to the Outback Bowl. It was a good experience. It was not a good experience watching Iowa get destroyed against Florida, but it's a nice area. A lot of Iowa fans in the area, and yeah, it was a good experience other than the game. BJ, seems like Carver Hawkeye Arena does have an older fan base that gets irritated when other fans stand up and cheer. I can agree with part of that. BJ. I've experienced the same thing, and I'm a guy who's usually out of my seat cheering during a game like that. Real Hayden, you need to make a new arena to make fans on top of the court. I'm not even talking about getting them on top of the court, Hayden. Just get them around. See what that does. See how that changes. You get students around the court. I know they're not right on top of you like Kinnick, but get them behind the opposing bench. Get them all the way around. I mean, I just think there are other ways to do this to improve the experience. I'm not saying it's going to be the Breslin Center, but to improve the experience. And Brian Butch may be off his rocker. I think this team has a lot of potential. We've talked about that. They got a lot of potential. They got to be able to if they can rebound the way they've rebounded these last two games, which I question. But if they can do that in the Big Ten, this team can beat anybody. Because the defense is never going to be great. But I've said it before, they're athletic enough to where I think they could be okay. But rebounding is part of defense. There's this, I had a fan on social media argue with me the other day about how Iowa's playing tremendous defense. They're just not rebounding. Rebounding is part of defense. We've heard Gary Close say this a million times. If you're not securing a defensive rebound, you cannot say you're playing good defense. There's a difference between guarding the ball, guarding a pass, guarding the post, boxing out, and then actually securing the rebound. There's a difference, and it all has to do with one aspect of the game, which is defense. So, again, if they can do it the way they've done these last two games, they'll be fine. Yeah, again, don't charge students. I keep saying this over and over again. Don't charge students. Get them in there. Do whatever you can to get them in there. Or at least have promotions where hundreds of students can win tickets to a game. I don't know. I don't understand. Circle Herc, BTN literally played it tonight before the basketball game, Mississippi State in the Outback Bowl. That was a good game. I remember the deep throw to Nick Easley. That was not a great offense either, but that was a good performance against a really raucous Mississippi State fan base. The man here, I don't think Iowa has any desire to spend or raise $200 million to build a new arena. You're absolutely right. Hayden, the long-term solution, whether you like it or not, is a new arena. Nothing is going to change until that happens. Well, we'll never know if we don't try. It's like going to the portal. I keep talking about going to the portal for a quarterback. Unless you try and see what happens, you're not going to know how it can affect you. Unless Iowa tries and says, hey, we're going to get students in for free. So let's see what happens. We're going to put students around the court. We're never going to know exactly the result of that. And I agree with you, Hayden. A new arena would be nice, but it's just not feasible. It's not feasible. It's just not feasible. So I would like to see Iowa do something different to try to deal with some of the issues of getting fans to games, especially students. BJ, good perspective here. It's very hard to tell where we're at. We beat up on weaker competition, lost to 3 really good teams. I agree with that. Marcia, I watched Rebracha in a couple games play good defense and offense for 5 minutes or so. Then it seems he sort of disappears. I would think being a fifth-year player, he would be more consistent. Remember, Marcia, he's coming to the Big Ten and played really well at the North Dakota State level. but that's a different level. It is Division I basketball. We're talking a totally different, what is that, the Summit League? He's not going up against guys like Kofi Coburn, guys like Trevion Williams, the physicality that Iowa saw at Iowa State. He's in a funk right now. I agree with you. He is in a funk, and they need him to get out of that funk. I like his tenacity. I like the fact that he's scrappy. But you're right. He has not been, I think ever since that Virginia game, he has not been the same guy we saw the first 7 games. And so, again, I think it's a curve. I think it's a learning curve. You hope, again, some time off. He had some time off before the game at the Pentagon. Now he's got another 8 days off. Someone like him can kind of decompress and get ready, because Maryland, I'd have to look at their roster. They don't have a ton of big guys inside, but, it's Big Ten competition night in and night out. They're going to be big men you're going to have to face. Maybe not like Trevion Williams and Kofi Coburn, but, Hunter Dickinson, the Amarui, the kid for Rutgers. I mean, every night, pretty much, there's somebody. Even the kid from Northwestern, the big man is going to be a load for someone like Verbracha, who's undersized. He's out of position right now, Marcia. He's out of position trying to play the 5. He's a natural 4. And then you combine that with the fact that he's playing in the Big Ten, coming from North Dakota. It's a challenge. So I wish him the best. He's a nice kid. We've talked to him on my podcast. He is a nice kid, and I wish him all the best. But, they do need him to continue to improve. Yakov22 would be happy to take football questions if you have them. We're just hanging out for a while longer. If people keep asking questions, we'll be happy to stay on. Again, we've stayed on longer than I normally would for a post game for Sila, as I like to say. But yeah, you're welcome to throw in a football question. We did do our Iowa live show with Mark Rogers earlier today, but happy to talk Iowa football. And you're welcome to call us, 515-635-1601. And the real Hayden, you're probably right. They're probably not going to try it, but a man can dream. Just like the quarterback thing. They're probably not going to do it, but a man can dream, right? Yes, the 38 people or however many people are on right now, we're close to 40. Please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so, because we host our live post-game show after every Iowa basketball game. And usually Coach Gary Close is here in the flesh with us. But of course, Gary was at the game tonight visiting his son, who is a manager for Fran's team. So, please hit the like button, subscribe, and yes, get your butts to Carver, please. It would help this team immensely, in my opinion. Eric says, if the fans like us can see the problems with Carver, how can Barta not see the problem? Oh, he sees the problem, Eric. It's a matter of, is it worth the money? It's all about money. It's all about money. All right. Now, I would think it would be worth it because, again, it's just like at a restaurant, right? And I'm not a restaurant owner. I've worked in restaurants. But if you are a restaurateur, all right, and an individual complains that something doesn't taste good, all right, and you know it was made correctly, and this person's just being picky. Now, is it in your best interest to say, well, you're paying for it, that's what you ordered, it's your problem, be on your way? Is that what's best for the business? Anybody who says yes, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry. That's just not good for the business, right? The best move there is to say, would there be something else you'd like, right? You need to operate to help future business. You need to, first of all, you're not nickel and diming people. You need to operate your business with a view to the future. So that's why you say, sir, I'd be happy to get you something else. What would you like to eat? Or can I get you a free dessert or a free drink? You need to tickle people's ears. You need to powder their bottoms, so to speak. Maybe that's not a good illustration or a good figure of speech, but that's what Iowa needs to do with students. You get them in for free. They're buying concessions. They bring their friends. And then other fans will want to pay. If the students are there and they're rocking, other fans who are paying fans will bring their families. That's at least my theory. And at least I'd like to see that tested at Carver. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
This is Jim from Sioux Falls.
Hey, Jim.
I had a comment and a question.
Sure.
About the Western Illinois.
Okay.
Fans should be prepared for a tough game. If you're familiar with South Dakota State, they're in the same league as the Summit League. and they knocked them off in the tournament last year or year before. And I think South Dakota State beat Iowa in a tournament a couple years ago, and
yes,
then
they did
at Iowa, I think.
And you know who was the head coach of that team?
I knew he was familiar, so I looked it up. Yeah, South Dakota State there. Yeah, that guy's a defensive warrior on the floor.
Yeah, and the head coach at South Dakota State at that time was T.J. Otzelberger, who was spectacular. I mean, spectacular in that he's 2-0 against Iowa, surprisingly enough. But you're right that
Yep.
Iowa has shown they can lose to opponents in that league. That's a good league. It's not a great league. It's a good league.
Yeah. They actually even lost to Division II Augustana from here.
Yeah, I remember that game. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a good season. So I mean, it ended up being a good season, but you can't afford.
I think they were national champions. So
yeah, you can't afford to lose to Western Illinois next week. Not with as weak as the schedule has been. You've got to figure out a way to you can't lose that game. That's a must win.
No. My question was, a few weeks back, the newspaper here every year comes out with their Elite 45 high school players in the state of South Dakota.
Okay.
And there's a couple in this area, one from Washington, people familiar with Seth Benson, plays linebacker at Iowa there.
Yeah.
And then my old high school, Brandon Valley, Matt Vandenberg, remember him, a wide receiver, about 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure.
Anyway, there's a young man that's going to Washington who's going to be a senior next year, and then there's the only sophomore on the team is from Brandon, and there's a new coach there, and he calls him a brutal giant. He's 6'5", 290, and I don't know if I should even mention their names. I don't know if that getting anybody in trouble or not, but
you're not going to get anybody in trouble.
Okay. Yeah, young man from Brandon's Navarro Shunky.
Okay.
And he's 6'2", 290, 6'5", 290. He's already got interest for Nebraska and Notre Dame. And let's see what he's. I just looked up on the internet. He won the national heavyweight championship at 16 already at AAU. And then the young man from Washington is Abraham Myers, 6'4", 225. That quite the athlete. That I was just hoping to maybe I'm sure they probably already know who they are. But
well, I'm sure they have. Or are these guys class of 23 or 24?
Myers is 23, and then Shunky is 24.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much Iowa does up there. I mean, there's typically not. I'm trying to think of the last. I mean, obviously, you're Sioux City.
Well, I say
right?
Seth Benson is from Washington.
Are we talking football or basketball?
Football. This is football.
Okay, because you used the term AAU, and so I thought you were talking basketball.
Well, the AAU is the young man from Brandon AAU wrestling.
Oh, okay. All right.
Won the national AAU championship at wrestling at 16.
Yeah, Iowa football has done a lot of recruiting work up there. So, no, yeah. I would be confident. And, of course, Landon Keekerix is from your area, isn't he? Is he not?
Yes.
Am I thinking right, kid? Yeah. Landon? Is Landon
from
your
back
area?
To Chad Greenway and stuff, kind of opened it up and stuff. People kind of got surprised about the type of football players we got up here now. But, yeah, Sioux Falls area is getting quite the size here. So, but
yeah, I'm trying to figure out who I'm thinking of is not Keeker, because Keekerix is from Rock Valley. I'm trying to figure out the kid. They signed a kid. Iowa signed a kid as a walk-on, and I'm trying to find who that was, because there was a Kyson Van Goot? Where is Hull, Iowa?
Hull, Iowa is way up in the northwest part of Iowa.
So how close is that to you?
Probably about 30 miles from Sioux Falls.
Okay. Yeah, he's the kid that 6'7", 232, but they signed him as a walk-on. But Iowa knows that area well. You mentioned Benson.
Yeah.
No, I I would guess. I haven't heard any hype around either of those guys, but I'm not really a recruiting dweeb to where I know kids in the class of 24 or 23 and 24, I should say. So I know a few names, but I'm sure they're in on them if they're worth an offer this early.
Yeah. But I'm a subscriber, so I thought I'd call in this first time. I enjoy the show. And
hey, appreciate the subscription. And yeah, absolutely. Call in the next time we're on. And of course, Gary will be on with us next week. And hopefully you've subscribed to our Iowa football channel as well, because we'll be doing a live show with Don Patterson Sunday night at 7 over at the other channel.
Yep.
So
yeah, I was at the Citrus Bowl the last time they were there against
Drew Tate.
Well, yep.
Yeah.
I'll just let you go. So I enjoy the show.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, sir. Have a great night.
You too.
And yeah, that area of the recruiting landscape has been productive on the football front. I mean, again, I don't know. I did tweet out about Van Goot when they signed him. He's the one kid in this class. Now, as far as walk-ons are concerned, Iowa did sign a kicker. Probably going to need him. Would not be surprised if he ends up kicking for Iowa this next year. That's just a guess. But Van Goot's a kid who I could see earning a scholarship. He's physically, he's got the traits, and he kind of flew under the radar, as I understand it, up in Northwest Iowa. So that area has really been productive as far as Iowa football in recent years. So appreciate that call from our Northwest Iowa caller. And BJ, Ogundele played really well against Purdue. Why hasn't he got more minutes in other games? Well, he got hurt tonight, right? I just don't think he's ready. I mean, I'm just going by what I see. I'm not there in practice every day, but obviously he's not playing very much. So that would tell me that Fran doesn't feel he's either physically ready, or it's something else, because I do think they need him. He played well against Purdue. I agree, but he got gassed in that game. There's no question about it. All right. Appreciate everybody sticking with us this evening. We were on a little bit longer than I anticipated, which is fine. Talking about Carver, talking about this team, and talking even a little bit about football. We'll be back on Sunday. Let me pop up a banner so everybody's aware of this. In case you aren't already subscribed, I'm going to throw up the date, which is the 26th. All right, so the 26th of December, and of course, that's this coming Sunday. And of course, that will be over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football. So if you already subscribed, if you're subscribed here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, subscribe over to our Iowa at the Voice of College Football channel, and we'll be live with Coach Don Patterson on Sunday, talking Iowa and Kentucky. All right. We will be taking your calls, taking your dats, and discussing the Citrus Bowl, the transfer portal. Hopefully we hear some good news about Iowa and the portal. I'm not going to hold my breath. Hopefully we'll have some more good recruiting news. There are some decisions upcoming in the class of 2023 that we'll have our eyes on. And of course, continued content being released right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. The next time we'll be back here will be Iowa's game against Western Illinois. And we'll throw up a banner for that as well. So we'll be back with Coach Gary Close on the 28th, or excuse me, the 29th, which is a Wednesday. I believe, let's double check when that game is. I believe that's a 7 p.m. game, but let me confirm that here before we go. Iowa Western Illinois is a 7 p.m. game. And if I'm not mistaken, it is on BTN Plus. So we'll be back for Iowa postgame with Coach Gary Close following Iowa Western Illinois a week from tomorrow, Wednesday the 29th at 7 p.m. Central Time on BTN. But again, we'll be live with Coach Don Patterson over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football this coming Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time for Coach Patterson and I talking Citrus Bowl, Iowa and Kentucky. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us this evening. Iowa, the win tonight over Southeastern Louisiana, 93-62. For Coach Gary Close, I'm Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Have a great night, folks.